Hello, my name is Brother with Sam. Welcome to the Good Conversation interview here from the CBC Teens podcast. We're excited here to meet with Brother Doug Schweitzer. Brother Schweitzer is a member of the Cleveland Baptist Church. He is the owner of Arthur Douglas Clothing Company and has just been a wonderful blessing and a good friend here at the Cleveland Baptist Church. And to all those who know him, he's just been a really great guy. I think you're really going to appreciate the interview. Brother Schweitzer gives us some insight as to how to run a business, how to follow a goal that God gives you, and just having a personal, intimate relationship with the Lord. And so I really appreciate the interview. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And take it away, the Good Conversation interview. Well, welcome to the CBC Teens podcast. My name is Brother with Sam, and I have the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Brother Doug Schweitzer here today. How are you today, Brother Doug?
I am fantastic.
Oh, it's great to see you. I'm doing absolutely wonderful. How's the drive in, my friend?
It was wet.
Yeah.
A lot of rain today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Does that affect your business or travel or anything like that?
Oh, it's kind of annoying. Like putting things in the cart. My business, I'm carrying things, so I'm in and out. So it might affect the way I look when I get to my meetings. But besides that, it's not that big of a deal. So.
You know, what I've noticed about you is, over the years, is that you're always an even-tempered guy. Mm-hmm. Is that something you developed, or were you just kind of born like that or raised like that?
A little bit of both. It's funny, if you look at my kindergarten report card, it says, Doug needs help with his temper. He tends to lash out and hit other children and things like that, which was, in the midst of or had a problem fighting or something like that. I was never an angry kid or anything. Over the years, I developed that. I think one thing that I definitely did do that, in your question, I think I always have been very even-tempered, but I feel like I have developed a more even temperament as, and I think that's due to a couple things. Number one, relationship with Christ through the years. You mature, you kind of, I think Christ, the older I get, and the more mature I am, the less judgmental I am, the less everything. So it's, I think that helps in my temperament. But the biggest thing is, kind of as a young man, and I would say all the way up till college, I was probably a little bit insecure, and so I didn't take criticism real well, even if it was constructive. Like if we were in a play, let's say I was singing a song, and you were my music teacher, and you said something about the way I was singing it, I felt like it was kind of an attack on myself. And so because of that, I would tend to be very defensive and lash back out. But I kind of did some things over the course of my life. I got involved in an internship when I was in college where I sold books door to door. And that program really helped me develop, I would say, a more even temperament, because I learned how to, number one, be able to take criticism in the light that it was meant to help me, not to hurt me. And it helped me to where I wouldn't take myself so seriously. I learned to laugh at myself. So I think that's helped me develop an even temperament. And I think it would help anyone, honestly. When you can learn to laugh at yourself and not take yourself so seriously, let yourself mess up, let other people help you. It kind of really, that was a catalyst for me in really evening out maybe parts that I would strike back if I felt like someone was trying to correct me or so.
Yeah, that's really good. So on that front, you mentioned you were feisty. I can't even imagine that. You've always just been a nice guy to me. Yeah. But can you describe your salvation testimony?
I would definitely, I'm going to put myself in that camp of it was on a someday, because I have no clue the day. I don't even know the year, honestly. I could probably ask my parents, because it was when they came to know the Lord, but they didn't write the date down, and I was, in kindergarten, so it was one of those things I don't recall. But, I came from a home, my parents didn't get saved until their 30s. I had seen enough of their life, even as a young person, to see that there was a little bit of, it was just kind of, there was tension in the home, things like that. They were actually on the brink of divorce before they got saved. Some folks invited them to church. They came to know the Lord. And as a young person, I saw their lives change, dramatically. It was unreal. And so, and then going to church and hearing about the things, I can remember sitting of our home on the front porch and just feeling the weight of my sin. Even as a young person, just knowing that I wasn't good enough, to get into heaven, and just I wanted to have that gift that they had, and just remember praying, and it was a life-changing event. Even as a young person, I praise the Lord that I was saved young enough to where I never really got into anything.
Sure.
I was saved at a young age, so it really spared me from a lot of things. So, but that happened, and it's been awesome. Never looked back.
Praise the Lord. So you're from upstate New York, which is, I only learned this, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, maybe more. But how did you come to Cleveland Baptist Church?
Good question. I always loved Cleveland.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Who doesn't love Cleveland?
Just kidding.
I call it the pearl of the Midwest.
Yeah, no, I went to a Bible college up in upstate New York for a year, and after that, I transferred to Tennessee Temple University, and that's where I met my bride, Lori, and she was from Cleveland Baptist. It was love at first sight, no question. She came in, and we shared music theory class together. So
why does it always start with music?
Yeah, it always starts.
Every great romance starts
exactly.
with music. Yeah.
One thing led to another. We dated for a few years, and then she graduated actually from the University of Tennessee through their, Tennessee Temple had a co-op nursing program with them, and so she graduated from there, came home, and then we were engaged. And the first 3 years we lived in Chattanooga, and then we moved up here in '97. So,
That's
and then
awesome.
it was through her. Lori was born in, I was not born and raised in this church, but she attended here. I think she went kindergarten through 12th grade to school. This was her home church. Doc Thompson was her pastor, and so it was a real natural thing when we moved up here to come here.
So your parents came after that, or
They did.
Had they come before? Okay, they kind of followed in.
They did, yeah.
Okay.
They retired from New Jersey, and they moved out this way just to be by the grandkids.
Yeah.
And at that time, my brother actually lived. He lived here in the Cleveland area as well. Lived in Parma. So, and it was crazy. It was like all of us kind of like.
That's awesome.
Lori and I were here, and then it was all of a sudden like my brother moved here, and then his wife's whole family had some roots here, so they all moved here. It was, but now everybody's moved away except us.
So in that time, you transitioned from New York to Tennessee, and then you moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and then is that when Arthur Douglas got started?
That is when I went to work with a company that actually does the same thing as my business model. That is actually, I did not always grow up with an affinity for fashion. So being from upstate New York, my hobbies were not, it was more very casual.
Skiing, maybe?
Yeah, skiing, fishing, boating, riding motocross, things like that. So I would say I was a glorified, not a redneck, but pretty close. So a lot of my interests were along there. My dad owned a drag strip with a couple of other guys, just as a partnership. So he always had fast cars, and so actually when Lori met me, and you could verify this, but one of her complaints about me was that I would never dress up. I always wore jeans on campus or like khaki pants, and she would always be like, "Why don't you have a pair of black pants? Why don't you have navy pants? Those are sharp." And I could never get it, but she was right. So it was funny. So So I actually, when we moved up here, I went to work for a company that did what I do now, and I learned the business. I learned the trade. My biggest fear was I didn't know how to match a sport coat to a pant. When I first started there, I mean, honestly, it was like, and I'm going to go in and see these high-level executives and tell them how to dress, and I myself didn't know how to dress. I looked like a complete schlep, honestly. When I showed up there, you could ask any of the guys at the shop. They're like, who is this clown? So, so that was, I did get a job with a company, and I worked there for a few years. and then learned the trade, learned how to match clothing. I had a very strong selling background, so I didn't need to know how to do that. I did need to learn how to measure people.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Did all that, and then we moved up in, I think, 97, and then in 2000, I started my business, Arthur Douglas Apparel, which is my name backwards. Douglas Arthur.
Yeah.
Schweitzer is my name. So I think it was Lori's idea to say, you should name it like Arthur Douglas. It sounds regal. It sounds like a clothing.
It does. What obstacles did you face early on when you started Arthur Douglas?
Well, I think, it would be the same as probably any business. My business is direct sales, so I have to create all my own leads, all my own, everything. So sourcing the products, the tailor shops that I use, the fabrics that I sell, all of that was pretty easy because I had a very good friend of mine that was in the business that had his own business, and so he helped me develop my brand, all the different labels that I would carry and things like that. So the largest challenge for me, number one, I'd say, is belief in yourself. Just the fear of failure. That's even though I had already been doing it, been successful, I was in a position where I had a no compete, so I couldn't
because you left the old company.
Yes,
wow.
Yeah, they make you sign a no compete. Believe
For
it.
how long does it last?
2 years.
Wow.
Can't sell within 60 miles of Cleveland.
Wow.
So I got my compass out, drew a circle around the city, and kind of went out there, and it was just generating new leads. That was the biggest challenge. I think of any direct salesperson is trying to get in front of for me, it's getting in front of the level of customer that I needed to be in front of. The Lord took care of that.
Amen.
In like one visit, it was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that visit, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I was calling down in Mansfield, and I had developed a list of names that I bought a Dun & Bradstreet business directory, created a query where I pulled down all of the top business executives in Richland County that ran companies that did $1 million plus in business, and I pulled down the top 5 executives, imported them into a contact database, like a management, Act was the name of it, and then just printed it out, had that. So I called on this guy, and he was like real gruff with me. He's like, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for this. I said, I was like, that's exactly why you should see me. So I got down there, he kept, I said, just give me 5 minutes. I was like, if I'm there more than 5 minutes, it's because you want me there, I promise. I'm not gonna try and, but I said, I think you could, give me 5 minutes. So he was like, all right, 5 minutes. So he gave me I got down there, and when I walked into his office, he was a completely different guy. He's like, you know what, I've been thinking about this. This is gonna be fantastic. And he goes, I haven't shopped in like 10 years, I need everything, blah, blah, blah. And so he placed a really nice order with me, but at the end of that order, I put that list in front of him, and it was all, he's like, man, he goes, where did you get this list of people? This is like the who's who of Richland County. And so I told him what I had done, and I just asked him, I said, hey, would you put your initials by anyone on this list that you feel like would be a good fit for my business, friends of yours that you know? Well, he owned 3 businesses, and he knew basically.
Wow.
So he gave me about, on that one visit, he said, yeah, use my name with all these guys. He goes, they'll take an appointment. So it was like 110 referrals, strong referrals, where basically I could just walk in the door with this guy's name. So the Lord really just kind of like catapulted it. It was a great confirmation, that this was something that was of the Lord and right thing to be doing. So,
well, that concludes part 1 of the Good Conversation interview. Please continue to part 2.
So you kind of started to talk about this a little bit, but can you describe your business model that you use at Arthur Douglas? Just to clarify, Arthur Douglas is the clothing company that Brother Schweitzer owns, in case you didn't know that already. But can you describe your business model and what techniques that you use?
I don't have a retail store. I don't have customers that come to me. I have office space in it's just in a professional building, and it's myself and my tailor are in there. That's it. Once in a while, clients are welcome to stop by, but my business model is really about service. So clothing is the byproduct, but a lot of the guys that I work with, most of them, they're very successful, and time is their biggest and most important asset, most valuable asset. So what I do is I go to them and I go to their home or their office, and we measure them up for everything that they need, from casual things to formal wear, everything in between, shoes, belts, socks, cufflinks, neckwear. And so it's kind of like a one-stop shop. So I'll go in there, and more than anything, it's a service from a standpoint of saving them time, but it's a service from a standpoint of saving them to think. So I'll say, hey, we'll talk about what they have, what events they have coming up, and then I'll make recommendations on what they should have, and so that's basically the model. It saves them the time and the hassle of having to shop, but it's very much a relationship business. It's like these guys. It's kind of like someone who cuts your hair for you. If they do a good job for you, you just keep going back. So.
You're I think the term is a haberdasher. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
Or is it a haberdashery that you run, or whatever the case may be, something like that?
Oh no, yeah, it's just I'd consider myself just a clothier, the clothing guy. That's our suit guy. Yeah.
So can you speak to style? I know that's kind of a broad question, but from your vantage point.
Yeah, I would say style. There's two things with style. Number one, it's very personal. Because people have, everyone has their own style. You have your own style. I can remember your style when you and Drew first showed up here. I was like, those guys wear their suits a little tighter, their jackets a little shorter, and and so that was your style. I was like, oh,
it was. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
So I think style is a very individual thing, and I think it can be a broad thing. So some people like their clothing a little more relaxed. Some people like it a little more fitted. Some people like their pants a little shorter. Some people like them a little longer. Yeah. Some people like it more tapered at the bottom. So, but style in general, I think, is permanent. Style should be permanent. And by that I mean, like when I say style, I think style is something that you should be in style wherever you go. And so what I try to convey to my guys is like, look, you should have a wardrobe that enables you to show up at any occasion and be properly attired, where you look appropriate. So that, in my mind, that's style. So it's like if you show up at a church event, depending on that event, you're going to have things in your wardrobe that kind of cater to that. If you're going to show up at a business event, guys should have that. If they're going to be at a country club golfing, they should have clothing that caters to that. So high school graduations, just whatever it is, have something. And I always tell guys, it's better be overdressed than underdressed. Most people will never scorn you for being overdressed.
Yeah.
But so style, I think, number one, is something that's very personal, and it should be permanent, like you should. But then the second thing, I think style is something that, it's not necessarily a moving target. I feel like fashion is a moving target.
Yeah.
Fashion is something that kind of goes up and down. You see the trends. So, I just feel like, in describing style, those would be my things. Is it's very personal to the person, and then the second thing would be more or less it's permanent.
How can a Christian man demonstrate good style without going overboard?
I think first of all, something that would be very important is just your walk with God. I think dictates a lot of how we do anything in life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like having a strong daily walk with Christ, where we know our Savior, we know His Word, we know the truths that are in His Word, and we want to honor Him, right? Because we love Him. Not because He's going to whip us if we don't, but it's like we love the Lord because He loved us. He's our Redeemer. He's our friend. He is all these things to us. So I think that covers everything as a believer, right? And I believe dress is involved in that. So, but to answer your question, I feel like that, coupled with the fact that, I don't think there's anything wrong with being fashionable and being, in style, but I believe modesty is something that's talked about in the Word of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that should be something that everyone takes into consideration when you look in the mirror before you head out the door. So, for example, there's styles today that, you can wear things as tight as you want, really. That's the crazy thing. I remember when this whole tight thing hit, because when I first got in the business, it was all about pleats and balloon pants. I mean, they were just, it was a very full cut pant, and the jackets were oversized, big shoulder pads, large sleeve heads, just everything. And when this first thing hit, I'll never forget, I got together with a group of young guys, and they're like, their motto was the tighter the better, So it's just kind of, number one, it's kind of hard to fit that, from a tailoring standpoint, but I just feel like modesty, it's like if you want to wear things tighter, I feel like you can strike a happy medium to where it looks up to date and it looks current, but you don't have to be on the edge, and so just be up to date, be current. You can have your there's a lot of things you can do, right? You can wear your pants shorter and tighter at the bottom without being immodest. You can wear your coat shorter, and that gives it an updated look. You can have your lapel be more narrow. That gives it an updated look. You can do a lot of things without having to be immodest. So I feel like modesty and godliness is something that should drive every decision we make, and having a walk with God daily is something that's going to help us do that.
What advice do you have for people that have a dream that are afraid to go after it?
You're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's what I would say. So dream big, and don't be afraid. Don't let fear control you, because I feel like, because even in my devotions now, I'm doing this thing that I did it this morning, right before we came. It was talking about fear, and I feel like people that are afraid to take a chance on themselves, it's probably one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because fear can be crippling. I had an acronym that I was taught. You've probably heard it. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think I did, actually.
No. Yeah. So fear is something that starts in our mind. It starts with our thoughts, and I feel like things that we need to do to combat that are filling our minds with truth, right? Because truth will squash fear. And we do that through our devotions, through our walk with God, listening to godly music, listening to Christian music, positive things that are going to uplift us in the truths that are in God's Word. Anything we can do to reinforce that, I feel like, are things that are going to help young people not be afraid to take that step. But yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try something. And then if you get in it and you see it's not for you, it's okay to stop. But like to not try because you're afraid is that's not what we're called to do. God hasn't given us a spirit of fear. So that would be my advice. It's like, don't be afraid, do it. It's better to shoot for the moon and hit an eagle than to shoot for an eagle and hit a rock. So I feel like that's the advice I would give someone. Just go for it. Don't be afraid. Surround yourself with people that are going to give you the courage and the ability to do what your goal is.
There seems to be a certain time where in a young man's life where his relationship with the Lord just takes it to another level. Mm-hmm. When did that happen for you? Can you imagine like a time when that happened, or what that looked like?
Sure. I think a couple of things. Number one, from the day I got saved, I was a pretty spiritually sensitive kid. I mean, like, I was real involved in church. God was changing me from the day I got saved. I was with a heart to serve Him. When I was in high school, I had a youth pastor that asked any of the kids in the youth group who would want to be mentored, just like a disciple. We had all been saved a while. And he said, if you'd like to go to the next level, I'd like to know that. And I'll either do that, or we'll find a godly man in the church that will do that with you. So I met with my youth pastor like every Tuesday morning. He'd take me out. It's like my junior and senior year. He'd take me out for donuts, just like, I don't even remember if it was Dunkin' Donuts or where it was, but we would just get and we studied a book, and we'd go through different books, and we would just read a chapter each week. And that was the first thing. That was kind of a little bit of a catalyst. But I would say, I went from there. There was a lot of progressions. But, when I got into the sales and marketing internship when I was in college to pay for my way through school. And it was selling books and Bibles door to door, okay? So that's hard, you know? We had to commit to working a minimum of 75 hours a week for 12 weeks.
Plus your school load?
What's that?
Plus your workload at school?
No, this was just during the summer. It was a 12-week program. But you were gonna, when I got hired, I didn't know where in the U.S. I was going. They didn't tell you where you were going. They didn't tell you who you were going to live with. And it was straight commission. You had to pay all your ways.
Wow.
So, but the opportunity was great. And there was a lot of other kids that were doing it and doing a very, a good job. I just felt like, you know what, if they can do this, I can do this. If he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? I just felt like, because it was all based on work. It wasn't based on talent from what they were telling me. And that was the truth. So, but being in that situation, because I got to tell you, first 3 days I worked, I don't think I sold anything. 13 and a half hours a day going around knocking on doors,
Wow.
In South Carolina. I can remember my address. It was 1024 Sand Pit Road, and I lived in a trailer with 3 other guys, and it was in a sand pit. And we'd come home, I'm not kidding you, it's in the summer in South Carolina. You opened it up, it felt like you were opening up your oven.
Wow.
That's how hot it was in there. That's where I slept, the tin can.
Oh my.
And man, just putting myself in that spot. The emotional ups and downs. I can remember the first person that bought a book from me, and I was on like cloud 9.
Wow.
And then you're in the valley. The deep valley. You're just working, and you feel like nobody likes me, nobody wants to talk to me. You know what I mean? It's like, you ever been in sales? Yeah. So it's like you're just like, when you're door to door, you feel like, I'm just bothering everybody. Nobody wants what I have. I should just go home. And I'd have people tell me that, well, this is a hard job. Why don't you just go home and get a job at McDonald's or like something where you could just make some good money? And they didn't know I was making really good money. But the longer I did that job, the more I learned to control my emotions. Instead of it being this huge roller coaster of like being way up and then way down, it kind of was like it went from like the Millennium Force to the Blue Streak to eventually this one over here at Kitty Park. You know what I'm saying? The highs and lows got a lot less, but through those valleys, man, I think, tough times in our lives where your back's against the wall, man, that forges you. It forged me as a young person.
Well, that concludes part 2 of the Good Conversation interview. Please continue to part 3.
And I can look back through any situation in my life that's been extremely difficult. That's when my faith has been taken to the next level, the next level, the next level.
Awesome.
So that would be the catalyst. I think all those different little things, and that was a huge one, though. I did that every summer I was in college, and then I did it full time after. I was a sales manager and recruited, trained, and managed and motivated kids to do that. So it was an emotional time, but it really took my spiritual game to the next level because it's just you and God in the car.
Do you think it's important that young men kind of thrust themselves into a very difficult situation like that? Because it sounds difficult, what you're saying.
I do. I don't know that everybody should do that, honestly. I feel like it's good. It would crush some people.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody's cut out for that. I think God has different things for different people.
Maybe not, that specific scenario, but something that just pushes them to the limit.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I feel like pushing yourself out of the realms of mediocrity is good. Get uncomfortable. I do feel like that's a great thing for any person to do. Something that is healthy and that someone can tell you is healthy and would be good for you, but you're completely terrified of, dive in. Yeah, go in the deep end.
Yeah.
You learn how to swim there. That's where you develop maturity. Things, all of our Christianity, I feel like is forged. It's forged in the fire.
Amen.
Nothing productive comes from an easy life.
Yeah, that's really good.
I feel like God puts us in situations to strengthen us and to edify us, build us up until He sees His image in us. And I feel like, the more things you can do that are difficult, I'm all for it.
So some people have an emotional relationship with the Lord, and some people have more of an intellectual relationship with the Lord. And then some people have kind of like a family, almost like a filial, I think you would say, relationship with the Lord. How would you describe your relationship with the Lord?
He's my friend, you know. I would consider my relationship with the Lord kind of like David does in the Psalms, you know. I mean, he's my rock, he's my fortress, he's my buckler, you know. As a deer pants for the water. I mean, you know, I think developing a hunger and a thirst. I have friends that I look forward to hanging out. I was looking forward to coming and hanging out with you this morning.
Likewise.
You know? I always enjoy our time. But you know what? I look forward to spending time with God because He's my friend, you know? And He has shown Himself so faithful to me through the years that, you know, He's my Redeemer. You know, He's everything to me. And so that's, you know, I don't know how you put that in a word, but it's like He is my confidant, you know. He's a high and holy one. But He loves me, you know, unconditionally. It's not based on what I give Him, because I can't give Him anything that it's all filthy rags. So I know who I am apart from the shed blood of Jesus Christ covering me. I know who I am. You know, I'm very sinful and I'm wicked. You know, and I've proven it to myself over the course of my life in different, you know, it's like I feel like we are as humanity. That's who we are. We're sinful. And so I know who I am and I know what He's given me, and I just can't believe it. You know, it's amazing. And so for me to live a life to try and whatever, make Him proud, you know, whatever that is, just to give back for what He's given to me. That's the way I would describe it.
You think deeply about things, and I've always appreciated that about you. So how often do you spend time in prayer and in reflection just throughout an ordinary day?
I would say a lot. You know, I have, I try to do devotions every morning, obviously, so that's a time where, yeah, I'm definitely reflective, definitely spending time in prayer, but all throughout the day, you know. I'm one of those people, like in my office, I have signs up that I look at, you know, and, you know, that I just try to, that tries to point me to what you just said. So I try to do that naturally, but I do have things that kind of help me, like all throughout the day. I'm kind of in, a unique situation where, you know, my office is just myself and then my tailor, so I'm in my office just kind of doing what I do. There's other times for recreation is a time for me. You know, I like to mountain bike ride, and so when I'm out in the woods, I love reflecting and I'm praying. Fishing, I love to fish, you know. I should be fishing right now.
No. We'll wrap this up soon.
I should. I actually had a trip scheduled to Northern Ontario, Canada. Ryan and I were supposed to be going with some friends of mine, but because of the coronavirus, we are not there. Otherwise, we would be.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's a great time. I love, it's so quiet. You're enjoying the beauty of God's creation. And yeah, so as much as I can.
Yeah.
I try to be deliberate about it.
Well, one last question.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for our teens just as they continue on in such a peculiar year and beyond?
The habit of developing, spending time with God daily in His, you know, develop that habit as a young person. That's going to be the single most important thing you do for your whole life. You know, because we have, you know, this world that's fighting against us tooth and nail to pull us and to keep our minds in a place of not truth. So being able to fill your mind with the truths of the Word of God every single day, you know, I can't even tell you how important that is, how much that will mean to you. It'll be your rock and your foundation throughout life. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say, is be selective on who you hang around. Don't exclude anyone, but you know, if you want to see who you're going to be, you know, 10 years from now, you just look at the friends you're hanging around, because that's where you'll be. And so, you know, your friends, in my opinion, need to be people that build you up in the Lord, people that edify you, someone that's not trying to pull you into the world system, the world's way of thinking. And so choose great friends. That would be the second thing. And then the last thing would just be, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. Kind of go out there, and if you're afraid to fail, lean on the Lord. That fear of failure, the fear of failure itself can be something that keeps people from doing things that the Lord has for you. And so, just always remember that the Lord will give you the strength. He's giving you the ability, the gift set, and put yourself in the way where God can use you. And I would say those three things. I have a saying that I love, that I love to give to young people, and it's don't be a thermometer, be a thermostat. Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
No.
I have a lot of all these one-liners. But it's like the difference. A thermometer just kind of adjusts to the climate that it's in, and it tells you the temperature there. Where a thermostat, it dictates the temperature. So no matter where you go, be a thermostat. Create your own weather. Be the same person you are here as you are at home and with your friends everywhere. Don't be a thermometer. Be a thermostat.
Well, Brother Doug, thank you so much for stopping by the Good Conversation interview here, and I always appreciate talking to you and your insight.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a blessed
Appreciate
day, my
you.
friend.
Yeah, you as well, man.
Thank you, my friend.
Well, that concludes the Good Conversation interview. Please tune in on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. when we have our CBC Teens podcast. God bless you, my friends, and stay in the Word.